All right, everyone. Well, welcome back. We're very luckily joined this morning by, I think, one of the hottest rising prospects in the local scene, which is Johnathan Micallef. Jono, thank you very much for joining us today, man. How you doing?
No, good, man. Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure, man. I've struggled to talk usually, so this will be good. I'll be able to work that muscle a little bit.
Yeah. That's why I thought I'd do it later in the morning when you've had a coffee and all that sort of all sorted. So, look, man, getting straight into it, I was wondering if you could just sort of, walk me through your introduction to the sport and how your martial arts journey sort of began. How did you first sort of become involved?
um, I've always been interested in martial arts as a whole. I really enjoyed watching it. I've always had that interest in it. But I sort of dove straight in, went to a martial arts gym, and just fucking fell in love from there. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, and I sort of immediately found a passion and something that I was actually really good at from the start. I think that I'm sort of rather genetically gifted a little bit, and it it showed on the match early on. I was picking things up really quickly, and just fell in love. And once I got to a point where I was had the ability to fight, to at that low amateur level. I was at a gym where they just were like, sweet, they chuck him in, see if he sinks or swims, and definitely feel like I swam.
Yeah, no, for sure. And look, one thing that I've seen is that when a lot of people become involved in MMA, they usually kind of take to one or more aspects sort of a little bit quicker than some. So, for example, some people learn striking a lot easier than they learn grappling, or vice versa. And, for you, what aspect did you pick up the quickest? And, which aspect was kind of the hardest for you to learn?
It's funny that initially the grappling was just like holy, like I just couldn't believe how much there was to it. You can watch it in the MMA and be like, oh yeah, they're doing this and that, but the small transitions and the really really small details that they're doing it just goes so deep. But I immediately, when I first started MMA, fell in love with the striking. So that was like a passion that I had straight away, and felt like I really got. I wouldn't say good, but like I from where I was to where I got to in a short amount of time, there was a lot of gains made. And the grappling, I sort of felt the opposite, whereas I couldn't get my head wrapped around it. Whereas over time, I sort of started to fall in love with the grappling as I started to get my head wrapped around it, which took a bit longer. But since then, I feel like there's been leaps and bounds. Yeah, so it's not like there's one that I'm getting getting better at quicker. It's just that like I think the passion in that specific martial arts grown, and as has the skill.
I think that's an important point you said, which is I don't think a lot of people appreciate that in grappling for MMA, even at a lower level to a higher level, the sort of micro adjustments you have to make in grappling is still, there's so much going on. I think a lot of people just think you have to watch high level jiu-jitsu to see that sort of grappling, but reality is it's just different adjustments to high level jiu-jitsu. But look, getting into my next question, you've fought for HEX, you fought for Demolition Fight Series. Do you have any other interest in competing, for any of the other sort of up and coming organizations, like Beatdown or an established promotion like Eternal MMA?
Look, it's been floated across to me before, but I would say I'm a very loyal person, and I hold that highly. And to the people that have been good to me, like Demolition was when I first started off, they really looked after me, and I stayed with them and I stuck with them until they couldn't find a fight for me anymore. And I feel like I'm in the same boat now with HEX, where they really help me. They run a phenomenal show, and every show has been bigger and bigger. So until I feel like they cannot find a matchup for me, or there's nowhere I can go forward, I find that I'll just stay there and stick to the loyalty side of things.
And I think that's something that, speaks to your character. And I think promotions, they'll see this and they'll look at that. And because, promotions, they get a lot of guys that kind of come in, they say they're going to stick around, take one fight and leave. And then, if you got to make the best decision for your career. If they can't find you fights, you just have to move on. It's the way it is. But I think, that loyalty will speak a lot to your character and your career moving forward. So kind of leading into my next question then, what are your next fight plans? We know that HEX 27's on August 18th. What are your next fight plans?
Well, let's just say I'm definitely booked in for HEX in August.
Love to hear it.
I'm not too sure if I can say the opponent yet, but it's another like young guy, very well rounded fighter. So look forward to that one. That will be announced soon. So yeah.
Yeah, and we'll definitely keep an eye on that space. And how do you feel, competing for an organization like Hex? Because they've really sort of the last year or so, they've really upped their game, and they're really making a run for I think one of the top promotions in Australia.
Yeah, definitely. They definitely are. Yeah, I feel that I haven't really been there when they before they changed ownership with Jake and the new guys, but
Mm-hmm.
so that was my second pro fight and first fight for Hex, and that was just a phenomenal show. I mean, it was really a big step up in what I've fought for in the past, and not taking anything away from other
Yeah.
promotions. Really, really well.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, what are your career goals in the sport? Is the UFC the main goal for you, or is it just to get to one of the big four promotions and fight some of the best fighters in the world? What is sort of your main focus for your career?
At this point in time, or what's something that I've sort of stuck by for a while now has been, if I can get the ability to fight and that being my primary source of income, that to me is living the dream. To be and train every day. Like at the moment, I'm just taking 2 days off of work and training those 2 days. And on those days, I wake up and I feel really privileged to do that. Obviously, I want to take this all the way. I think that I am gifted. I have a phenomenal team around me, and I think I can take it all the way. I think I can be a champion. So, yeah, matter of getting there and doing all the right things now, and rung by rung, step by step, get into that position.
Yeah, for sure. So, and kind of, you're leading into my next questions here, which is great. But we're seeing a lot more fighters sort of, they become homegrown champions, and that they're sort of staying in the country that they're born in. We're not having to see as many fighters have to go to, America or Brazil to, sort of get that championship level training. Is that sort of where your mindset is, that you'd like to be a homegrown champion, or would you like to eventually go overseas and maybe train at some other big gyms and just get a different feel for what's out there?
Yeah, 100%. I think that stick to your roots, like stick to what got you to the dance. And I find that the team that I've got around me now, you can't it's just all natural, the vibe you have with your coach and all those sort of things, even if you're training partners. And of course, there are a lot of benefits going to America and, moving over from your home. But I think that like a well-balanced fighter, and we've got examples of, Volkanovski and all the other guys throughout the country, even in New Zealand, that have shown that it can be done. It's hard, but when you have the right team around you, the sky, it really is the limit.
And I think something that really showed was in the Volkanovski and Islam fight, where, a lot of people going into it thought that Islam was essentially just going to wrestle him to death. And then, we saw that Volkanovski, by working with Craig Jones, but mostly down here in Australia, is still able to do some, slight high-level technical adjustments on the ground that allowed him to not only just survive, but compete very well. And, some argue win that fight. But look, man, leaning into my last question, because we don't want to keep you too long. We really appreciate you giving us some time. But wanted to know, man, what are your hobbies sort of, outside of fighting? Is, while MMA is a sport, you've got to kind of throw 100% everything into, I think it is important for fighters to have, an identity or some interests outside of fighting, so that it doesn't just become this sort of whole thing that just surrounds every aspect of your life. So, what hobbies do you have outside of fighting?
Yeah, well, I'm actually a really simple person when it comes to that. Since I was young, I've always gone fishing with the old man.
Yeah.
Done a little do, and that's sort of my place. When I'm out there, it's like you're out in the element. The ocean it's just so powerful. It takes you away from the things of like the thought of all the stress and just normal life, and you go out there and you relax, and you can actually really switch off, and then come back to it and you get straight back to work. But I'd say my big hobby.
It's always good to crack open a few tinnies and go for a fish. So you can just say that. And today is definitely the day for that. But look, man, thank you so much for giving us some time today, man. We really appreciate it. Wishing you all the best. And, we're definitely going to be keeping an eye to see who that opponent is for HEX 27 on August 18th. But Jono, thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you so much, brother. I will speak to you after the next.
Definitely. Let's do it.